women. Am I right? They got to have all the different shampoos. And nobody ever looks close. But if you do, here's the secret. They all just have like this much left in them. Because like, oh, I'm saving the jasmine mint for a special occasion. And oh, sometime I want to smell like Thinkleberry or whatever, right? But that's not where they stop. You look around the house, you'll find it everywhere. There's going to be like 4 different flavors of dishwasher soap and washing machine detergent. And it goes on and on. You name it. There's always these little things all over the place. And men, we're so much better than that. We don't do it, with the exception of Scotch, but that's totally different.
I suppose I'm supposed to come in.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Sean.
Happy 126 twos. All right. First, I do have to say, I told you on the last one, hey, folks, I'm going to be in an interesting place next week. You're going to be surprised. It's going to be awesome. And I'm back in the studio. And if you're paying attention, maybe you have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you're paying attention, you go,
yeah,
Sean, I thought you were going to be in Florida. And then this thing called a hurricane happened, and it shut it down real fast.
Oh,
so I was supposed to be. We were supposed to fly out yesterday morning, and because of the hurricane, all travel plans got shut down. So here I sit.
Were you gonna? Excuse me. Were you gonna head up to Edmonton, or was it gonna swing by and pick you up in Lloyd?
I was going to head up to Edmonton. We were supposed to fly out. It was 8 a.m. Then it was going to be 5 a.m. And then it was strongly advised. And then things just started to fall apart after that. So I was talking with Tom Luongo this morning, and he said they had up to 85 mile an hour winds. And he said it wasn't exactly the funnest place to be at that time. So, yeah. Michelle, good morning, as she's throwing it up. So either way, I'm still here with you twos. I'm sitting in the studio.
That you can join us. Yeah, that's right. Although it would be better if you were doing this live stream from 37,000 feet.
Yes, it would have been. It would have been super cool. Oh, well, hopefully it won't be the last opportunity that comes that way. Either way, happy to be here. Linda Tabo says, morning. Let's start here. Coots 6.5, 6.5. It's the new segment. We've stopped keeping track of the days because they've been sentenced. I had Chris Carbert on the podcast this week. So if you want to hear a live update from one of the Coots boys, you just go back and listen to that. But yeah, 6.5 years. We'll continue to, I don't know, point and shed a light on it too. I don't know if we're changing anything. Leanne Taylor, morning. You skipped over one. Who was the other one? Twos.
Well, I didn't skip over it. I just
Murray Anderson. Good morning,
Murray. Always good to see you.
Lots
Leanne
of people
as well. Looking forward to the chirps during the upcoming hockey season.
The other thing that's been happening is up the Johns. Jamie Sinclair called me, of course, this morning, and he's all over me because he wants to do something more about Airborne Friday. So happy Airborne Friday to all the military folk out there. And so we got to have a chat about that. What else, twos? What else? We got the Mashup collection. If you are interested in anything Mashup, here you go. You can get yourself a nice t-shirt. I'm going to throw the link in the live chat right now. So there's that. Grab yourself a shirt, grab yourself some memorabilia, and support the cause, as they would say.
Shout out to Petrie Construction for the free hat. I got a free hat when they did.
That's a sharp hat. That's a sharp hat.
Well, they do a sharp job. They did a bunch of work at the Twos Cave, and it looks great. It's the talk of the town. It's extremely well done. So thanks for the hat. Thanks for the great work, guys.
And before we get on to today's show, I'm going to say it now, and I'm going to say it at the end. Well, one thing is, if you're watching here on X or anywhere for that matter, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share it, folks. We need you to beat the old algorithm as much as anything. I'm sure, well, we're only here because of you fine folks sharing what we do.
We'd be doing this if nobody watched, but yes,
that's true. It's true. We're also going to be in Red Deer at the UCP AGM. We've got, that's Friday, November 1st. We've got a hospitality room. It's going to have a cash bar in it. We're going to have the Mashup, in some shape or form, live. So
Yep.
that's something to mark on your calendars. Make sure you
So-
get to the UCP AGM and then look us up because we're going to be there.
Yeah, and I would recommend, I mean, yeah, it's a cash bar. Buy as much as you like, drink as much as you want. You should be having fun. But I feel like the other hospitality suites are probably going to have free booze, so you should just like duck over to one of them real quick, throw a few brewskis in your pockets, and then come over.
Yes. Okay. Shall we begin? Foreign interference in a foreign land. Former transit police officer Eric Adams took charge of the largest city in the U.S. in 2022, the second black person to be elected to to become New York mayor, while the city was still recovering from the disruptions of the COVID pandemic. That is Mayor Eric Adams, a former police captain and law enforcement. I scroll down. He Man, what the heck did I do here? He spent years accepting free airline tickets, lavish overseas accommodations, illegal campaign donations from Turkey. Federal prosecutors said on Thursday, in return for the gifts and donations, Mr. Adams used his influence as Brooklyn borough president and later was mayor to assist Turkish officials with issues they were facing in the city. Prosecutors said, most notably in obtaining safety clearance from the fire department for a new high-rise Turkish consulate building. That's what he's being accused of, charged with.
So you got a bunch of Turkish delight. You got like why would you go after the police chief for something you need from the fire department? But what do I know? I mean, it's handy that he ended up being mayor eventually. You're like, oh, thank God we were bribing the right guy. But you think you just kind of just not go a circuitous route?
Yeah,
But maybe that's just me.
Till death. Oh man, I tell you what, folks, it's going to be a Friday. Till death contract do we part. I'm going to have a hard time reading, it seems. Okay, let's pull this up here.
Well, Christopher Freeland.
Yes,
Share.
I'm gonna pull. I got it pulled up. Here it is. To access their share of our $6 billion Canadian Housing Infrastructure Fund, we're requiring provinces and territories to, implement measures from our renters and buyers bills of rights, protecting you against blinding bidding and renovictions. Build more homes and more types of homes, including duplexes, triplexes, townhouses, and multi-unit apartments. Pre-approve construction for design in our housing design catalog to get construction started quicker. Freeze development charges in large municipalities. Adopt forthcoming national building code changes. And provinces have until January 1st, 2025, and territories until April 1st, 2025 to agree to these terms. If they do not secure an agreement by these dates, their funding will be transferred directly to the municipalities.
So this is federal overreach saying we understand that this isn't part of what we control federally. So we're going to give you a bunch of money with strings attached, like what they did in COVID. This is the exact same thing all over again. And ironically enough, there's a bunch of things in here that are going to slow it the fuck down. For example, saying that they need to pass the Bill of Rights protecting you against blind bidding and rent evictions. The more restrictions you put on landlords, the fewer you're going to have because it's going to make it more. You're going to increase the risk that they incur by having these. And so when there are fewer of them, you're going to drive up costs. This is supply and demand. Pre-approved construction for designs in our housing design catalog to get constructed quicker. The best thing to say would be you can build whatever the fuck you want, wherever the fuck you want it to be, and it doesn't have to be one of the 6 government-approved things. Okay? This is central planning of housing, and it's going to go about as well as you think. But they're going to say, oh, well, these are the strings attached. And if somebody like Alberta, who's already said that they are not going to bite on any of these things, and I hope to God they don't, they're going to say, oh, well, you guys didn't do this. And so now you missed out on all this funding. And then the NDP are going to say, why are we leaving money on the table? Say, first of all, it's our fucking money. And secondly, you can't be letting the federal government constantly push the envelope on these things, because next thing you know, the federal government's going to control everything. And one size does not fit all in a place as big as Canada or any
I'd like
place
to
for that matter.
I'd like to point out though at the end, if the provinces don't agree to it, twos, it says right at the end that their funding will be transferred directly to municipalities.
Yeah, this
So
is an attempt to like shame them into doing it.
yes, nonstop non-confidence. Okay, so after a first failed attempt, the Conservatives have tabled another non-confidence motion to try and bring down Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's second motion of the fall sitting was presented at the House of Commons Thursday, just a day after his first one was defeated. Federal MPs on Wednesday voted down 211 to 120 a motion stating that the House has no confidence in the Prime Minister and the government. Both the NDP and Bloc Québécois joined the Liberals in defeating that motion. MPs will debate the new motion on Thursday and vote on it next week, Tuesday. So you can expect another shutdown. Yeah, like
with similar results.
Similar results, yes. After that, Conservatives are expected to table at least one more such motion before Christmas. And on Wednesday, Bloc leader Blanchette also said the Liberals have until October 29th to pass 2 block bills, or he'll start talking to other parties about toppling the government. And, a couple of the things on the blocks, their first private member bill seeks to increase pensions for seniors aged 65 to 74 by 10%. And the Independent Parliamentary Budget Officer estimates that proposal could cost $16 billion over 5 years. And then Bill C-282, intended to prevent federal government in the future from negotiating adjustments to Canada's dairy and poultry supply management quota system in trade deals, has already passed the House and is awaiting review in the Senate.
The dairy cartel. This is the evil Bloc Québécois douchebags who care about nothing but their own self-interest are on the same side as the dairy cartel on this. How do you think the dairy cartel feels about it?
I don't know. I'm kind of. We haven't heard from.
We should
have.
I haven't heard from. Had him on for this.
I haven't heard
how
from.
Do you feel? How do you?
I haven't
feel
heard from DC.
Yeah.
DC, how you feeling out there?
We still chat. Yeah. It's just occurring to me now that I'm saying this, because I was talking with him like, well, then we should have you on again sometime. This would have been great.
If you were sitting in
put
Quebec,
him right in the hot seat.
Twos, if you were sitting in Quebec right now, are you happy that the Bloc saying is playing hardball, or are you going, man, let's get this government out? Are you happy you got a leader like that?
Probably on some level, I feel like I would be saying the whole point of us voting for you is so that we can separate from this fucking place that we hate despite all the free shit it gives us. And why aren't you putting that as one of your demands? It seems rather two-faced that you're saying, hey, send us to Ottawa so we can separate. And then you get the gold card. You get like the Willy Wonka gold pass out of the chocolate bar. You get whatever you want. You get a, how would you say it? A carte blanche. Because it's fucking Quebec, you get the carte blanche, and you're like, we want expensive cheese. Fucking cheese eaters.
Edmonton sucks. The majority of Edmontonians want the mayor and the city councilors replaced, according to a new poll from City News. The survey of 400 residents in Alberta capital concluded just 26% of Edmontonians think Mayor Amarjeet Sohi and their city councilors deserve to be reelected.
Yeah, Amarjeet Sohi, the former Liberal Minister of Transportation, I think it was, who was a shit show in Ottawa. And then he ran in Edmonton, and they're like, oh, well, you fucked up a lot of stuff in Ottawa. You should come do that here. And they voted him in for some reason. And now, fast forward a couple of years, spoiler alert, it's not going well. Why is anybody... How is this news?
This isn't
Why is
news.
anybody, including us, talking about it?
That's a better question. That's probably a better question. Bill 293. All right, I'm going to pull up the food professor. Bill C-293, pandemic prevention and preparedness plans must include this. And I'll pull up the picture here so people can get a little closer look. It says, after consultation with the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food, the Minister of Industry and provincial governments provide measures to And then he's got underscored regulate, including industrial animal agriculture, promote commercial activities that can help reduce pandemic risks, including the production of alternative proteins.
What are
and
alternative proteins, Sean?
bugs.
Bugs.
That's conspiracy here. There's nothing saying that.
I mean, it's this crazy conspiracy theory. Everybody's crazy for even thinking it's going to happen or worried about it's going to happen or for talking on their podcast about the facility that opened in London last year like we did. What a bunch of crazy conspiracists talking about this thing that's literally verifiably happening.
Trump assassination attempt of the week. Last week, me and Twos talked about how they're just starting to pick up steamrolling, and now nobody's talking about it because it's just like, oh yeah, they're going to try and kill Trump, and everybody's quite okay with that. Here's a tweet from Donald Trump himself. Yeah, it says, big threats on my life by Iran. The entire U.S. military is watching and waiting. Moves were already made by Iran, and that didn't work out, but they will try again. Not a good situation for anyone. I'm surrounded by more men, guns, and weapons than I've ever seen before. Thank you to Congress for unanimously approving for far more money to Secret Service. 0 no votes, strictly bipartisan. Nice to see Republicans and Democrats get together on something. An attack on a former president is death wish for the attacker.
Oh, we got a text from the Dairy Cartel.
Did we already?
Yeah.
Well, he's listening.
He's watching shit. He doesn't usually get to tune in live, but he did 5 minutes ago, only to have you calling me out. I didn't even know the context, got angry and turned it off.
See, folks, the DC is paying attention. Not anymore. He tuned out because he's like, you guys are assholes. Are we okay?
He said he's gonna tune in later. He's probably got busy.
I didn't even get to buzz us out of. Okay, here we go. The NDP are not a serious party. We talked about Donald Trump getting another attempt on his life, and we just moved on. The NDP are not a serious party. Well, how about the vote here? And we'll pull it up, saying, bingo, there we go. Votes result on Livable Basic Income Act was voted down. 273 no, 54 yes. So that's one. The next here is I just found out the NDP spent $24 million in 2021 and got less seats than the Bloc, who spent $2 million. So there you go.
It should say fewer, but yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct. So their return on investment is dismal. And then here's a neat little clip. This is one of the ones that you weren't able to look at, but here we go. So this is the man himself.
The Liberals are too weak to stand up to conservatives, but we can stand up to them and we can beat them. We've shown that in Elmwood-Transcona.
That's the by-election that they won in the NDP stronghold. Yeah, we can beat them. Sure you can. If you can, put your money where your mouth is. But maybe that's just me.
Now the Dairy Cartel's texting me. Too much fun on this side, folks. Too much fun. Sorry, everyone can't get in on the inside joke because they
Dairy Cartel. We got a show to run here.
That's right. I'm gonna have a knock on my door pretty soon. If I get carted out, folks, it's just the Dairy Cartel showing up because we're making fun of them. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, the NDP needs to put their money where their mouth is. Buzz?
Trying to.
There's just one small problem with the idea of putting their money where their mouth is.
The NDP are not a solvent party. Here, I'll bring up the next one. Here you go. Bada bing, bada boom for you folks. This is David Coletto, the CEO of Abacus Data. He said, in another life, I spent a lot of time combing over party financial statements and Elections Canada data. I wanted to understand the dynamics of the Canadian polling today and the likelihood of an election. Look at the balance sheets of the CPC, the LPC, and the NDP. At the end of 2023, unrestricted funds available for each party. The Conservatives, 10 million. Liberals, 2.1 million. The NDP, 1.8 million. Cash on hand. The Conservatives, 16 million. Liberals, 2.8 million. And the NDP, $289,000.
He should have got into this a little bit deeper. So here's the thing: when you look at the balance sheet for the NDP, they have $289,000 cash on hand, but they have current liabilities of 1.7, almost 1.75 million. Okay, which means that they're pretty far in the hole. He's saying that they're not doing too bad because they have a little over $3 million worth of capital assets. Probably there's a couple vehicles in there or something like that, but it's probably almost all real estate, which means that you can't easily convert it. So when it comes to an election, what they have is basically their current ratio. And their current ratio is their current assets divided by their current liabilities, which anything less than 1 in a corporation is a little bit troublesome, like 0.95, 0.98. You're like, ooh, I don't know about that. Their current ratio is about 0.25. They are fucked. So an election
just
gets
another
dropped. This is why. This is like, sure, yes, Jagmeet Singh needs to vet his pension, but also they don't want an election because they can't fucking afford an election. Now, to be fair, they raised $6.8 million in 2023. So for them to have about a 1.4, $1.5 million current or net liabilities is not the end of the world, but they're basically somebody who just lives on their credit card. And that's not the way this should be leading up to an election. This should be the part where they're either building up a war chest or they're amping up their spending. They've cleared up all the debts and they're spending as much as they're getting in to get the message out. But they still haven't even cleared up their old debts from the last election.
It's just another reason why the NDP are not a serious party.
Absolutely.
Doug Ford finally does something conservative. Ontario Premier Doug Ford sparked anger on Monday with comments about the province's unhoused population, suggesting that people experiencing homelessness can simply get off their ass and start working like everyone else is. Quoted, the best way to get people to be able to get out of the encampments, to get out of homeless, get an application and drop it off to one of these companies and start working. You need to start working if you're healthy. The Premier said that while the province is more than willing to take care of unhoused people who are struggling with health issues, he bluntly stated, if you're healthy, get off your ass and start working like everyone else is.
I want to point out something really funny within this article. Ford's populist message has not been well received by many. Now, what's the definition of populist? Something that the majority of people think or believe in. So either it is a populist message or it was not well received by many. It can't be, you can't have both at the same time.
It's a paradox.
You can't have a populist message that nobody likes because it is therefore by definition not populist. But we don't have a serious journalistic cabal going on in Canada, and this is the shit we get left with. And then they were pointing out that people took to Twitter to complain. And here's somebody named K Nugent 4118 who has more spelling mistakes than Zane when he comments on the live stream. Yeah, after he gets off his fat ass and fixes the damn problems that create homelessness in the first place, Ford cut rent controls. Rent controls drive up the cost of rent, making more people homeless. Cut mental health spending. Debatable because it depends how you're going to define it, because they think that all the safe injection sites and stuff like that fall underneath that. Ford scraped basic income plan. You mean scrap basic income plan? Basic income plan is literally communism. It's how you get nothing done in a country, which means that everybody ends up fucking homeless. And it goes on. And so you've got these stupid people making bad arguments with worse arguments backing them up. Fat thumb syndrome on the live stream comments, bro. And here, so Michelle says, "Oh my god, I'm dying of laughter over here," and then says, "Okay, now I'm laughing even harder." Not exactly sure which part it was, but I'm gonna take credit for it. And she says, "Oh, and here's another one. It says twos for the win." Just a reminder to everybody. Just a reminder to everybody. All nice things said about twos in the comments get posted. And now here's one about Sean.
This whole thing is gay. With a confidence vote looming in the debate, debate in the House of Commons devolved in Wednesday into a heated exchange of accusations, seeing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau suggest Conservative MPs made casual homophobic comments. The fracas, I don't know, began when Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre referred to the now infamous $9 million New York City condo the Canadian government purchased to serve as Consul General Tom Clark's official residence. And it went on from there. I don't know. Like, how much do you want me to read of the interaction back and forth of these two guys?
Basically, Trudeau almost got kicked out of Parliament for being a jackass about this. What was said was when they were talking about how ridiculously expensive this New York penthouse is that they got for Tom Clark, and they were talking about like this handcrafted copper soaker tub, and then they were saying, well, he needs stuff like this, and somebody had said, why? It's not like he's meeting with consulates in the bathtub. And then Trudeau, who sees everything through the lens of being gay, does this. You turned off the sound.
Nah, you can't hear it anyways. I just want to look at it's a Vesper tweet, and it's showing the guy, one of his own.
Yeah, this is Nur Mohammed.
I just want, as you're telling the story.
What the fuck is this guy saying?
That's a Vesper tweet. Yeah. That was well done. I mean, you can hear. We can pull up the audio if you want to. I just wanted to show.
But yeah, basically, it's just Trudeau going off on a weird thing about gay stuff.
Yes.
And Michelle said the laughing was at the NDP stories. You can't help but laugh at those idiots.
Doug Ford does the socialist thing. Oh, we're talking bike lanes. Interesting. Trudeau's environment minister, well, no, actually, that's a lie. The Ontario government is considering bringing forward legislation that could prohibit the installation of bike lanes when lanes for motor vehicles are removed. As a result, Ontario Transportation Minister Pramit Sikaria said, we have seen a record amount of gridlock. We've seen explosive population growth in our cities, and it is getting harder and harder for people to commute. What they're talking about is removing vehicle lanes for bike lanes, and then the debate was on. Here's one that says, a reminder that bike lanes move 2 to 7 times more people than car lanes. If people don't have those bike lanes, that means way more people making car traffic worse by traveling by themselves in cars and Ubers. And then the next one was showing a visual of here, and I can probably expand this.
People in the cars, and then, well, there's the cars, and then there's what the people in the cars look like compared to if they were on bikes and if they were on buses. And here's the thing: it's funny. I saw a lot of these this past week, and they always talked about how many people can fit into one particular parcel of road, but they don't talk about how many people actually get moved and how far they move in the different modes of transportation. So, for example, by this logic, all of our highways, because basically the more densely you can fit people on there, the better it is. And they're not taking into account how quickly people are traveling on the roads. It's just how many people can be on there at any one time. And by that logic, all of our highways in Canada should just have people piggybacking each other. Seriously, because they don't actually talk about trip time or average speed. It's literally all, well, there's lots of people on the road like this. You're like, okay, but you're really overlooking an important part of the argument. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're intentionally overlooking a very big part of the argument, it's probably because your argument sucks. Paul Abrahamson says, happy birthday, twos. And then he says, love to you. Thanks, Paul. That's a cool picture, of you being held up by somebody in the water.
As far as bikes go, I know this isn't like, it kind of gets to the way of like, bike lanes are no good, right? It's kind of like you either have to have a bike lane or like a car lane, right? That's the only two option there. And for certain places, you can do both. You can have different ways of doing it that actually
Yep.
accommodate both. And that gets lost in the argument too. It's like we either got to remove a car lane so we can have safety for bikers. There's other ways to do this, and it all depends on your spacing. Lloydminster is
Mhm.
certainly different to Edmonton than Edmonton is to Calgary.
Yep.
Calgary is to Toronto, right? So like
Exactly.
there's a whole bunch to go into this discussion, but it always seems to just get down to, going back to the picture, right? Wow, look at how many more people we can get if they're biking versus if we're in a bus. Then we're on and on and on. This goes.
But the thing
It's
is will they use it? And you're absolutely right, is that each municipality is different. And that's where Doug Ford's screwing up here, is because he's saying he just wants to do a blanket ban across
thing.
all of Ontario. And as far as I'm concerned, whenever it comes to a dispute between a higher level of government and a more local level of government, by default, even if it's something I disagree with, like a bunch of idiot hippie bike lanes, the local government should be correct.
When
and
I
Kevin
lived in
points out that a large catapult to send people between Edmonton and Calgary could work. Honestly, I like it. Let's do a few test runs of it. And then if it's successful, we'll figure out some way for them to land safely.
I could think of a few politicians we could stick in there to try it out just to see if it works.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll give them the full Jim Prentice treatment.
Just one final thought on the bike lane thing. When I lived in Finland, the bike lanes got you around the place I was at faster than a car would, and it was, healthy exercise, blah 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 blah, all these great things. I'm not saying that it's a universal, just that, but that wasn't Helsinki. That was north of Helsinki. Once again, giant city versus a smaller city and how they constructed it from the beginning.
Yeah,
This is
so
why it's like, it's not all bike lanes are bad. And I get where we live and how much time we actually get to do that. But at times there
winter
is
is a factor too.
Sure. Yeah, but
Right?
Finland has winter too. They're sitting on the
Oh,
border.
absolutely, right? But I mean, you got these people up north that seem to have it figured out, and then they look down south to Helsinki and they say, "What the hell were you thinking?"
Bill of Rights and lefts. Adriana Lagrange insists changes to the province's Bill of Rights will solidify personal freedoms around bodily autonomy, but Alberta's health minister would provide an example of when that right would violate, instead urging people to wait and see the legislation. It comes as doctors worry the new legislation could discourage more Albertans from getting vaccinated. In a video posted online Tuesday, Premier Daniel Smith announced changes to the Alberta Bill of Rights, which haven't happened yet, folks. It's coming. She says will provide Alberta's right to refuse a vaccination or other medical treatments. And then you can imagine the article goes on to weigh more of the cons or the thoughts of that being not a great thing.
Yeah. Like, how is everybody going to get myocarditis if we pass this?
Heist of the week. Brazen Thieves. I kind of want to see if there was
I wish there was footage of this.
That's right. That's what I was thinking. Brazen Thieves breached a moving transport truck and stole $1 million worth of merchandise, says Peel Region Police. They managed to get off the trailer.
Pull your XLR cable real quick. I'm hearing some crackling coming through when you're talking.
Me?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But
are people hearing me crackle? Is that what's happening right now?
Yeah. Well, I am, even when you said that. It was like an onomatopoeia. You're like, crackle.
All right. I may be having issues here. Okay. Before I go completely dark, I feel like I'm slow too. Okay. Well, you're a crackle-lackin'.
Yeah.
All right. Give me a moment, folks. Twos is going to carry on by himself because this is going to kick me out for a second.
All right. Bandits board moving trucks and wild thefts in Mississauga. So this is literally, do you guys remember like the opening scene of the first Fast and Furious movie? Like before Paul Walker did that whole like thing where they're getting onto the semis and stealing the stuff off the semis while the semis are driving. This literally happened in Ontario, and they arrested a bunch of people for it. I can't remember what the hell their names are. Marius Ionescu, 36 of Scarborough, faces 2 counts of thefts over $5,000, conspiracy to commit an indictable offense, and robbery. Instead of thefts over $5,000, it should be like thefts over 60 miles an hour. Oh, shit. Now I got to figure out where the buzzer is. All right. Next one.
Am I still cracking?
Chinese spy tries to take one for the team.
Can you hear me
Keep
just
talking.
fine?
I can hear you.
Am I
Yeah, you
okay?
seem okay so far. Yeah. Yeah, you seem to have fixed it.
Okay, technology, folks. Technology. Chinese spy tries to take one for the team. Former conservative leader Aaron O'Toole has told the Foreign Interference Commission that China's attempts to sway Canadian elections may include included dispatching women to try and seduce him. In February, testimony that was made public this week, O'Toole recounted an incident in which young ethnic Chinese women repeatedly harassed him at public events. Mr. O'Toole described the young woman as very flirtatious and as unprofessional and relentless in her attempts to obtain his phone number, to the point he felt bothered and uncomfortable, reads a summary compiled by the commission's lawyers.
Yeah, you're still crack-a-lacking. So I don't know. I get suspicious anytime an attractive woman wants to talk to me about literally anything. Mrs. Twos, I'm not entirely sure that she is not a foreign agent sent to infiltrate me for some kind of a secret spy thing. And then Tristan Hopper, he hits the nail right on the head here. I say this with some experience, so he's being, self-deprecating here. One huge benefit to having politicians who look like Aaron O'Toole is that if an attractive young woman aggressively hits on them, their immediate reaction is, yeah, probably a spy. I feel like he should just, see how far he can take it, though. Just go down that road, see where it ends, and then be like, oh, yeah, after, 17 years of marriage, turns out she was a spy all along. But yeah, and then Aaron O'Toole, to his credit, it's like the only good thing he's ever done. Comments, how can I report this horrific example of bullying to ex-management? Thanks a lot, Tristan. Having fun with it. I thought that was fairly funny. So well done on his part. Next one. Canada makes not the bee. Here is Canada. Oh, and an ad for some beautiful woman. Calgary police blur face of suspected arsonist when asking for help identifying him. Calgary police are hoping the public can help them identify an arsonist responsible for setting fires in the Riverbend community. And they posted this picture of the person and blurred out their face. And now he just looks like some random Squid Games guy. This is what we pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars for the police in our country, is that they want help identifying somebody and they blur their face out because the off chance they might be a minor. They haven't established that yet because they don't know who it is, but just in case they're a minor, they're going to blur that person's face out. And so if anybody has a Squid Game mask for Halloween, that's probably them burning the fires. And this is what gets Canada on not the bee. We are not a serious country, folks. Sometimes I just got to shake my head at the whole thing. And Glenn Giebert can confirm Mrs. Twos is out of Twos League. Absolutely with you, 110%. Rocky says Twos needs to take more vitamins. Well, I don't know. I take a fair bit of iron, if you know what I'm saying. Next one. Residential school deniers keep digging up old shit. Sean, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
Well, gotta love live streaming. An NDP MP has introduced a bill that would criminalize residential school denialism, saying it would help stop harm caused towards survivors, their families, and communities. If the bill is passed, people could be charged under the criminal code for promoting hatred against Indigenous peoples by condoning, justifying, or downplaying the historical and lasting impact of residential schools.
Now, here's where things come to a head with this, is that 3 years ago, we had this big thing. It was like the Times news story of the year that there was all these burial sites, all these mass graves at all these residential schools. And to date, unless one happened since we started live streaming, there have been 0 found. And so the problem now exists where anybody saying there have been 0 graves found in any of these residential schools, that gets called residential school denialism. And so now you have a proposed government bill literally banning factual truth. This is Fahrenheit 451 times 1984. It is. And so here, this is here. I'm going to do this real quick.
As you do that, I'm irritated on my side because I have things not working and I can't hear the crackle. And so I'm like, folks, some days live streaming, pain in my ass. That's what
Fahrenheit 451 times 1984 equals 894,784. That's what we're going through right now. The 894,784.
894,784. CTV takes the mask off. CTV News was caught splicing a clip of Pierre Poilievre to propagate the Liberals' narrative. This is not only total fabrication designed to deceive Canadians, it is also a major breach of journalistic ethics. This, of course, was Sebastian Skamsky. This was
Which is just the classic name. I can't hear his name without laughing.
Skamsky. Media relations for Pierre Poilievre. This was what me and Chris Sims talked about earlier this week.
Yes.
Where they spliced together out of like a long paragraph, they spliced together a narrative
3 separate clips and then posted it out of context to make it sound as though Poilievre wanted an election because of dental care.
Correct.
And then CTV issued a very lukewarm set of apologies that got absolutely nowhere. And then it turns out that they fired 2 people for it. Well, technically, they said that they're no longer in the newsroom, which doesn't mean that their employment has been terminated. But this is where it's so Talib Nur Mohammed, whose face you saw in that clip from Vesper, this guy. So Mr. Freedom Poilievre orders his MPs not to talk to news orgs that won't parrot conservative talking points. No, just want to have honest conversations about what's actually going on. That's it. They're not looking for preferential treatment. They're just looking for an honest take on what happens. And then Pascal Saint-Onge, another liberal, says his hidden agenda to not have journalists ask him difficult questions. These are the same people who say that we need to stop misinformation and disinformation and deep fakes and cheap fakes and all of this stuff that's hurting democracy. And then when a supposedly trusted news organization that's fairly prominent in this country gets caught red-handed splicing together 3 different clips and posting it out of context to give the completely well, I don't even know what the context for a spliced clip is, but to give the completely wrong impression of what Pierre Poilievre said in an attempt to influence the popular vote in this country, when that literally happens. And we have the video of it because they were dumb enough to put up the video because they were dumb enough to make it in the first place. They're just mad that they got caught.
Yeah. Liberals aren't a serious party at this point. Simple as that.
Okay. I want to go back. I totally missed this one, but this was regarding the residential schools. So City of St. John's councillor says, I'm disappointed to see that the intellectual failings of Jonathan Kay seem to be convincing generally intelligent people that there are no graves at former residential school locations. And this lady, Rebecca Tucker, says, the fact that you're mad at someone for pointing out that no bodies were found instead of being happy that they didn't find 215 dead children says a lot about you, and none of it's good. I could have never put that better myself.
Not everything is fine with Cineplex. Cineplex has been ordered to pay a record $38.9 million by the Competition Tribunal for deceptive marketing practices, but the ruling doesn't stop the theater owner from continuing to charge the online booking fee that sparked the case in the first place. The tribunal issued the decision late Monday, siding with the Competition Bureau in a case stretching back to May 2023. That was when the watchdog accused Cineplex of misleading theater goers by not immediately presenting them with the full price of a movie ticket when they purchased seats online. Cineplex began charging the $1.50 online booking fee in question in June 2022 to many customers not enrolled in its CineClub subscription, and Scene Plus loyalty members just saw the fee waived and dropped to $1. The Bureau alleged the fee constituted drip pricing, a practice when customers are drawn into a purchase without full disclosure of the final cost.
So, yeah, and a deceptive marketing case can be a bit unsatisfactory because now they can continue to charge the same fee. The $38.9 million fine Cineplex has now been handed is equivalent to the amount it collected from consumers through the $1.50 online booking fee between June 2022 and December 2023. First off, it should be something like 10 times as much. If you're going to actually, the worst case scenario for getting caught doing something like this is you have to pay some of the money back. That's not really an incentive to stop doing it. That's an incentive for you to try and hide it a little bit better next time. That's all. And it doesn't go back to the consumers. It doesn't go back to me for the 2 movies I went to during that time. It goes to the government coffers. It's going to get pissed away. They've spent more than that amount of money since the time we've been talking about this.
So you'd like a $1.50 check too? Actually, a $3 check.
Like $15 per time. You put a 0 on it.
You'd like a free movie. You'd like a free movie and a popcorn. That's what you'd like.
Actually, that's basically just the cost of popcorn. But yes. Yeah, I want them.
Am I a moron in reading?
This is the same kind of thing with when you get busted with the Conflict of Interest Act and they give you exposure. You need to make it so that people aren't incentivized to do this.
This drip pricing, isn't this like going to buy a vehicle? Like they give you a sticker price. It's like when you go $26,000. You're like,
concert
okay,
ticket?
$26,000, all right. And then you walk in and there's like fees and
$26,000, and they're like,
never that.
No. Yep.
No. Wait, there's tax. Yep. There's this. That's exactly. So is this opening the door for something new to happen or not?
Probably not with vehicles, because that's a very controlled monopoly. Vehicle sales is just it's the biggest old boys club around. Isn't it weird that you can't go to a store and buy, where you go down an aisle and you're like, there's a Jeep here and there's a Ram there and there's a Civic here. It's always got to be that one store that sells just that one and the next store that sells just that one when you're buying new vehicles anyway. Doesn't that seem strange? Haven't you ever thought about that? Like literally everything else we buy, we go to a store that has a selection of things from a bunch of different companies, except for cars.
The other thing that I find strange, and I learned this along the podcast journey, was I assumed if you bought a Ford dealership, you wouldn't be able to own, a Toyota. And I found out, no, you can own a Toyota dealership too. You can own multiple.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. If you own,
right. So you think you're going over and talking to somebody different at the Toyota, but it could actually be the same ownership group that owns both of them.
Mm.
That seems even more odd to me.
And while we're talking about dealerships, if anybody listening works at Country Hills Nissan, please fuck off and go away forever.
Jasper burns liberal credibility. Dan Mazier, Dauphin MP and Shadow Minister of the Rural Economic Development, put out emails obtained from Minister Guilbeault's department reveals discussions to cancel planned prescribed burns in Western Canada months before the devastating wildfire in Jasper. The Liberal government was warned since 2017 that catastrophic fire in Jasper was not a matter of if, but when. Liberals denied the advice of forest management experts and allowed a tinderbox to persist around Jasper.
Tinfoil hat, call me crazy, but they wanted this to happen so that they could say it was climate change. Right? Now, here's an interesting clip. This is from Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault. And here is him being translated, because whenever the questions got difficult, he started speaking in French. Kind of like the Emergencies Commission.
There had not been a lot of snow the winter before in the region where Jasper is located. Low precipitation during the spring. So yes, there were conditions favorable to a forest fire. A protective zone had been created, of course, but you cannot change the weather.
Sorry, just for anybody else.
But you cannot change the weather.
Now, from somebody who promotes a carbon tax to change the weather, this clip
being created, of course, but you cannot change the weather.
seems like an odd thing to say.
I thought Tews was going to say something there, but there you go.
Murray says, true that, twos. And actually, I threw this in here. Like, share, subscribe, and check us out on YouTube. So if you guys are enjoying this, not just because you happen to be listening or came across it, but if you think this is good, this is where you want to, tell some friends about it. But the other thing is that we ran into a bit of a hiccup. We had somebody we thought was going to be really good to talk to, who would be really good to talk to about some of the stuff we're talking about this week. And he just said, and not faulting him for it, to be clear, but he just said, your YouTube page doesn't have a large enough following. And so when you get a bit bigger, come back, which is funny because I'm like, nobody listens to us on YouTube. We're everywhere else, right? But the point is that if everybody, the next time you're on YouTube, if you could look up the Tuesday Mashup, because I haven't changed the name on it yet, because I don't really care about YouTube either, but some people do, and it ran interference on us getting what would have been a really good guest this week. So if you guys could subscribe to our YouTube channel, if you're liking this show, we'd appreciate it.
Liberals put the homo and home owner. The Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions.
I can't believe you said that.
If you're new to this show, Tooz doesn't show me the headlines anymore so that I have to read them as they come out. So he's having as much fun as you guys are listening to me. Anyways, the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions confirmed to Global News on Thursday that it's ending the need for lenders to apply the minimum qualifying rate, the mortgage stress test, on straight switches of uninsured mortgages at renewal. A straight switch sees a homeowner renew their mortgage at the end of their term with a new lender, but maintain the same amortization schedule and loan amount. Essentially, it's the same mortgage, but under a new lender without the stress test.
Yes. So there was a few changes made. One of them is that they're allowing insured mortgages up to $1.5 million, which means that you put less than 20% down. Now, 20% is $300,000. So you would have at minimum a mortgage of something like $1.25 million, which if you're going to pay that off in 20 years or 30 years, it doesn't really matter. That is a lot of money. And that's not even taking into account the insurance fees. Now, it's funny because you've got all this stuff mixed in there like this. They're taking away the stretch test for transferring mortgages at renewal, which is a good thing. This is the way it ought to be to begin with. And I just find it baffling that you have all of these bankers in Canada who literally do this for a living. And then you have somebody in the government like Chrystia Freeland jumping in and saying, Mr. Speaker, we need to have rules here and here and here. Instead of saying, these guys make their living off of doing it and doing it well, we should probably trust them to just handle it. Okay. And as long as they're not breaking any laws or doing anything insanely corrupt, if they want to offer a 40-year term or an 80-year term, which is stupid, don't ever take an 80-year term. Don't even take a 40. But if they want to offer it, and if consenting adults want to sign on to it, why is the government getting involved? We want them out of our bedrooms. I thought that was pretty well established. Let's get them out of our fucking finances.
Strike of the week. Workers at several Metro Vancouver grain terminals walked off the job Tuesday morning. Members of the Grain Workers Union Local 333 headed to picket line 7 a.m., 3 days after serving strike notice in what one industry group says could be devastating job action. The affected facilities are in Vancouver and North Vancouver and include Viterra's Cascadia and Pacific Terminals, Richardson's International Terminal, Cargill's Limited Terminal, G3 Terminal Vancouver, and Alliance Grain Terminal. According to an industry group representing Canadian grain owners, more than half of all Canadian grown grain last year moved through the affected terminals, and the stoppage will halt 100,000 tons of commodities arriving at the terminals each day. In a statement Monday, the Grain Growers of Canada and the devastating work action will cost about $35 million daily in lost exports.
I think it's probably going to cost a lot more than that after it all trickles down. I don't think they're taking into account how much it's going to affect the individual farmers. Isn't it interesting that when a bunch of freedom-minded people start blocking up international corridors, they come up with ways to enact an Emergencies Act, but when unions do it, they get a free pass? And they just so happen to be doing this as harvest is in full swing, and depending on what you have, maybe even wrapping up right now.
Yeah. Well, you read my mind too. As soon as it's a union, it's fine.
Yeah.
When it's a group of independent, freedom-loving folks from all across Canada.
Ooh, that's the problem, is that the Coots blockade, they should have formed a collective
union.
agreement.
Yeah, we're
They
a
should have
union.
been, yeah, and then just said they're on strike. Yeah, we're not doing anything weird. We're just on strike. Unions are always on strike. This is what we do. Oh, yeah, that's fine. Please carry on. Can I carry your luggage for you, sir? And Michelle, nail on the head. Imagine that, terminal workers striking at harvest time. And here we go. We got someone commenting from YouTube. I had no idea twos is everywhere. Yes, well, that's mostly our fault that we don't really talk about YouTube because it's only a little bit better than the CBC.
BC election update. As British Columbia heads towards an election, it is important to remember that nearly all MLAs voted to condemn the Freedom Convoy and praise vax mandates. The only MLA to vote against the motion was Conservative leader John Roustad. The other thing coming up here, I'll pull that headline up. There you can see it. The other thing is here's a video of BC Conservative leader John Roustad warned convoy event about kids being forced to eat bugs. Roustad delivered the conspiratorial speech at a far-right event celebrating the Freedom Convoy in 2023. And just to finish this off, CT News during the BC election, eating bugs, what a dumb right far conspiracy theory. And then, so here's the headline, okay? And then go back a year. UBC cooking competition aims to show bugs are great to eat. It's like
they're contradicting themselves.
Yes.
They've literally they call it a conspiracy theory, and yet they have their own footage confirming this. This is the same issue with people saying the Great Reset by Klaus Schwab is a conspiracy theory, and you can go on Amazon and buy it. Except this is even worse. This would be like Klaus Schwab saying it was a conspiracy theory at a fucking book signing. That's what the CTV is doing right now.
If they don't want to promote John Roustad, they should just stop saying things like that, because most people are like,
that's exactly
you're making the point for him.
Like, oh, he's the only guy who stood up for everybody. He's the only guy calling this how it is. He's the only guy who seems to have a modicum of common sense in the current parliament in BC. Oh, yeah. I mean, everyone's already voting for him. You don't need to keep selling us on it.
I've never liked Mike Ellis.
Me either, Sean, to be honest. Yeah, I'm with you.
Here, I'll pull it up. There you can see. There's a whole bunch coming out here. This is showing that not only the UCP tweet and the federal Liberals tweet side by side from the esteemed Arif Virani. Nonetheless, the snitch lines are alive and well. This is Tarek, I should point out, that tweeted this. Expected from the Libs, but from the same party just about to put out a revised Bill of Rights. Essentially, it's talking about hate. And so on one, you have here's Mike Ellis. Hate has no place in the province of Alberta. I was pleased to join the City of Edmonton, EPS, and the Crime Stoppers Association of Edmonton in Northern Alberta to launch the new Report Hate campaign this morning. On the opposite side, you had from the Liberals, there's no room for hate and intolerance in our country, which is why we launched Canada's Action Plan on Combating Hate. Twos, your thoughts?
UCP people. We talked about this when it came to the rural internet. It's the same thing here. If you're doing something that the NDP or the Liberals are doing the exact same thing as, you reassess. Okay. So they're basically trying to set up Crime Stoppers so that there's a special, for murders, press 1. For extortion, press 2. If any of these are a hate crime, press pound to be connected immediately to an operator. That's what they're doing. And if we could just realize that crime in and of itself is basically all there is, and that it's impossible to actually determine what goes on in somebody's brain and decide whether it actually is racism or not, and then to try and have disproportionate sentences for people who commit crimes against people of different races. It's silly. It's stupid. It's like we're literally going to a place where we're going to have DNA tests presented as evidence for exoneration, not because there's blood and semen on the crime scene, but because they're going to be able to say, you see, I'm 2% Nova Scotian. It's not a hate crime.
An honest perspective from an honest journalist. Conservatives appear to be trying everything this fall to turn their poll lead into an eventual election victory. This is out of the Toronto Star, by the way.
This is from Susan Delacourt, who is a member of the Trudeau Foundation.
With the exception of one force in politics, likability. Nothing in Pierre Poilievre's repertoire in the Commons the past 2 weeks have been aimed at making people like him, beyond those who already do. He insults, he taunts, he name calls, he sneers, all the things that parents tell their children not to do if they want to make and keep friends. It may be making his base happy, but it is doing nothing to present a positive picture of what he would be like in power. One could argue, in fact, that it's doing the opposite. That is Toronto Star this week.
Yes, so this thing goes on and it sketches, it says like, there was a bunch of heckling in Parliament, not him personally, but his people. And so naturally he's responsible for it, which I guess to some extent could be fairly true to a very limited extent, I would say. This came on the same day that Poilievre announced he would be blacklisting CTV News for what he saw as, quote, malicious editing job on some of his recent remarks, implying that he was trying to bring down the government over dental care instead of the carbon levy. This is the exact same thing we talked about that two people just got fired over. Which, by the way, unless you're going to release their names, I'm not going to believe you, because CTV does kind of have a track record of lying about, which we're literally talking about today. Anyway, so she's just trying to present this thing like, okay, well, yeah, he's winning and he's totally dominating, but nobody really likes him, right? And it's just, this is grasping at straws. And they're the shitty straws you get in A&W that fall apart. And so Susan Delacourt, a staunch liberal, like literally a member of the Trudeau Foundation, who also works for the Toronto Star, keeps just trying to be like, but it's this other thing. It's this other thing that he's bad about. It's this other thing that she's bad about. And she's just running out of steam, but still keeps trying to move forward on it. And it's absolutely hilarious to watch. What an absolute hack. And you wonder why nobody reads the Toronto Star. Okay, we got some comments to catch up on here. Just like the Coots undercover hose. Yes, exactly that, right? So the whole Coots thing was that a bunch of like ridiculously hot chicks showed up and were like, oh, hey guys, you got any guns and explosives? Oh, I just love running guns and explosives all over my sweaty body. And then they were like, yeah, we got some stuff over here. If you're, yeah, no, okay. The next time you're trying to do something vaguely non-government friendly and some random hot chicks show up out of nowhere, they're probably not your groupies.
Goofy news. This has become a new thing that we've been doing here for the last couple of weeks.
Well, the amalgamation of them to try and keep it moving quickly is what we've been doing, but we've been covering goofy news for a long time.
So as if people aren't watching, okay, it's a blimp going aground here.
It's a blimp in Sao Paulo crashing into just the neighborhood residential stuff.
Yes, it was a planned promotion of a local soccer team in Sao Paulo, and was supposed to fly during its match on Wednesday, but then it crashed. So that's one. The next,
bet you that wouldn't happen in Argentina.
Before I guess to the funding, I guess world's oldest cheese found on ancient Chinese mummies. When the 36-year-old coffin of a young woman was excavated in northwestern China 2 decades ago, archaeologists discovered a mysterious substance laid out on her neckline like a piece of jewelry.
It's kind of a fun way to get buried, right? I want a cheese
I want
necklace.
a cheese necklace. Anyways, it's the
I just
oldest cheese out there.
so I assume that they dug her up with nachos.
The city of Toronto is planning to remove male
Yep.
and female from. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Somewhere somebody's laughing at Tuesday's jokes. I get harassed all the time that I don't laugh enough for some reason. The city of Toronto is planning to remove male and female from all forms and change it to cis male and cis female. Punch me in the face, twos.
No, that's not the important part. They're always doing shit like this. But this, they had to do as an emergency. This was an emergency.
The next is funding. This says, do you live in Alberta? Yes, no. I do not recognize the province of Alberta, but live in a region with the geographic boundaries of what is known as the province of Alberta. This is the government of Canada.
Yeah, so this is funding for 2SLGBTQ+. I mean, they're missing a lot of letters there. Poverty in Canada, improving livelihood and social well-being, draws on research supported by Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council. It's such an odd thing to say and in kind of a weird context, but I will say this. Do I live in Canada? Yes, no, or I do not recognize the country of Canada, but live in a region within the geographic boundaries of what is known as the country of Canada. I'd click that every time I saw it.
Sure. It's crazy that's on the Government of Canada website. That's it. That's an insane thing to be on there. Here is a 38-year-old Brampton man. You probably saw this video of him walking out the door, not paying for his bill. Well, it sounds like he is charged with assault and uttering threats to do bodily harm after allegedly dining and dashing. I mean, he didn't pay his bill. That's why he's getting filmed. So if you hadn't seen that, here is Utah's first goal in franchise history. This sucks, man. This they scored on themselves for people listening and not watching. That's the first goal in Utah, the hockey team's franchise history, right there. That sums up.
What's their name, by the way?
I think there's just Utah Hockey Club, aren't they? I don't even think they have a name yet.
I don't know. Utah Mormons.
And then you have breaking. The IRS joined. IRS union just announced. Yes. Sorry, the IRS union just announced they're endorsing Kamala Harris. Let's go. So that is
not the win you think it is. When the IRS says they want to support one particular candidate, the place that takes all your goddamn money, they support one particular candidate. Like if Revenue Canada came out and said, and actually it'd be kind of funny if they did this. Like if Revenue Canada came out and endorsed Pierre Poilievre, imagine the heads that would explode. All right. And Tyler Wilson says there are 2 genders and 127 ways to be gay. That's very specific. I'm glad that you were so thorough in your research, but I don't need to see your notes.
School board not above board. Thames Valley District School Board officials have asked teachers and other employees to donate some of their pay to support programs, leaving one education analyst in complete shock amid a Queen's Park audit that followed a $39,000 executive retreat. Employees got an email on Wednesday from board administration asking for voluntary payroll deductions to support the Thames Valley Education Foundation, which aids students by providing emergency aid, resources, programs, and the money would come right off their paychecks while the provincial government is probing the board's finances. One longtime teacher did not want to be identified for fear of professional retribution, said the timing of the email is particularly galling, given the audit and the recent $39,000 3-day retreat to the Toronto Blue Jays Stadium Hotel by school board brass amid a $7.6 million board budget deficit. The Queen's Park audit comes after double-digit pay increases to 17 of Thames Valley top administrators last year, ranging from 12 to 33%. Sounds like they're taking...
this is basically straight out of the Liberal book.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Culture, economics does not trickle down, but culture does. And we've created a culture in Canada where the people at the top of the pyramid send themselves on expensive, fancy retreats and give themselves giant raises every year while they fuck over everybody else on the bottom. That is Trudeau's legacy.
Netflix cancels its Canada subscription. I feel like we talked about this, like a year ago? And here it is. Netflix
Well,
has
I
confirmed.
predicted this was going to happen a year ago. So I
I
guess
think
it's the mashup effect.
I think so. We talked about this. I think a lot of people talked about this. Well, here it is. Netflix
Okay,
has
fine.
confirmed.
Other people were right too, but mostly me.
Mashup 126. Netflix has confirmed it's pulling back on its film and television training and development programs in Canada, citing mandated CRTC contribution under the Online Streaming Act. According to the streaming giant, it's invested more than $25 million in training and development in Canada since 2017, including initiatives ranging from the Pacific Screenwriting Program to a short documentary effort with Hot Docs and a 5-year partnership with the Canadian Film Centre aimed at supporting Canadian talent. And a Netflix spokesperson said that following the CRTC's decision to require online streaming services to contribute 5% of their Canadian revenues to support their Canadian broadcasting system, it will now no longer be able to continue that investment.
The next paragraph, though, despite our long-standing commitment, the government has chosen not to acknowledge our substantial support for the Canadian film and TV sector. Consequently, we will be unable to continue funding many of the programs that have come to rely on our backing, as we are now required to allocate resources to meet CRTC's new investment mandates. So this is something that they were going above and beyond before it was even mandatory or, part of law that they should do this. And then the government said, okay, you're doing it, but you're not doing it the way I want you to. And they said, okay, well, we're just not going to do it anymore. This is the law of this is great moments and unintended consequences right there.
It's a sad, honestly. It's just, yeah. Liberal governments, or more things coming out of the liberal government. The
Murray Anderson, Utah pyramids. I love it. Well played.
Why
took that out. Never mind. No, sorry.
Air, B's, and C's, and double D's. That's a great headline. I don't want to say that too often, folks, but busloads of sorority girls, strippers, parties, neighbors fuming about an Airbnb rented home. I got to give a shout out to our listeners for bringing this one to our attention. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was definitely the listeners that sent that to you that you told me we had to talk about on the show, and not that
that's
you
exactly
found
what
it,
happened.
You're like,
that's
you
exactly
probably have
what
notifications.
happened.
You're like, whenever I get an article like this in the news, I want to know about it. And then you're like, oh, Tooz, we got to talk about this because it's beautiful. It's wonderful.
I would never take credit for something I didn't. I got sent to me and asked if we could talk about this. They wanted to hear Tooz's take, okay, on Neighbors of London, Ontario home, often rented on Airbnb for weekend parties, says it's a stark example of how short-term rentals don't work in residential neighborhoods and create havoc. And I'm going to pull up the picture here so that people actually can see what the heck is going on over front of this house.
Yeah.
And the most recent
for those of you listening, this is a large driveway that's absolutely full of sorority girls in sundresses.
Yes. I'm just gonna there. Okay, there's a better. Okay, everybody can see it now. Okay, in the most recent instance of large gatherings at 167 Sunnyside Drive near Masonville Place, young university women began being dropped off early Saturday morning by the busload for a 2-day sorority event. Quoted, they would get dropped off, get some instructions from some other girls on the driveway, march in the house, and be inside for about an hour before coming out and chanting and singing their sorority songs, said Chris Prater, who lives nearby. Then they would wait in the driveway for about 25 or 30 minutes before another bus came in, dropping off more girls and picking the ones up who were already inside. It went on to talk about there being a bachelorette party, a bachelor party, all these different things. It sounds like it was quite the happening
in the
house.
backyard. They've had strippers there at times, and people are complaining. Like this Chris Prater, who gives a very accurate and detailed minute-by-minute development of all the sorority girls who keep showing up at this house. I feel like this is CBC is not a serious organization. And I feel like this is the kind of interview they had where they sat down in the living room with the husband and wife. And the wife was telling them how horrible it is. And the husband was like, yeah. It was like all these sorority girls coming, busloads of strippers. it's horrible. I just want to enjoy myself on my backyard, and now I'm forced to videotape this for hours on end so that I can have an accurate recollection in case I ever get interviewed. And then the wife's like, "Yes, exactly this. It's horrible. Can you believe it?" And then he'll say, "Yeah, it's just, it's just reprehensible. They just get up to all kinds of shenanigans in these pool parties and lingerie pillow fights. And they know that the lingerie pillow fights are bad because they take most of their clothes off first so they don't get wrecked." And he'll be like, "Oh, when I close my eyes, I can still see it. When is this going to end?" And then they're going to cut to some guy named Tom standing outside looking wooden in a suit. And it'll be like, "Well, thanks, John. Despite the fact that there is quite a lot of ongoing dispute regarding this thing, we did manage to find one small group of people who were not against it. We talked briefly to a group of a male organization newly founded of bird watchers we found in the bushes nearby, and they said that they hadn't even heard of this and didn't know the first thing about it. Back to you, John." See, because they're not actually there watching birds with their binoculars and stuff, Sean.
Yes, yes,
yeah,
I get.
yeah.
Thanks, Twos, jackass.
Anyways, CBC, not a serious place.
Air, B's, and C's, and double D's. Great headline. Just a great headline. Happy news. I figured that was going to be the happy news for some odd reason. I guess it.
Well, no,
mean,
it's just it would be happy if they weren't trying to shut the place down.
I guess.
And then
they're
they're complaining. The neighbors are also complaining that it's going to affect their resale value. Like, okay, how do you not put that in the listing? Like, it's right next door to a place that has busloads of sorority girls and strippers. That's how you sell the place. Worried about your resale value? Yeah, our resale value is too high now. Thanks a lot, sorority girls.
It's back. Quebec separation. Happy news, folks. Quebec separatism rears its head again. The party Quebecois headed for government is promising another referendum. Basically, if an election were held today, the PQ would likely form a majority government. So there you go.
They're going to have a referendum.
They're going to have a referendum on separatism. Maybe. We'll see what politicians do with this.
Here's the thing. The next time fucking Quebec has a referendum on separation, I want all of us to vote. It shouldn't just be Canada. It shouldn't just be fucking Quebec that determines whether Canada still has it as part of it or not. I want all the farmers and all the oil field workers and all the plumbers and electricians and everybody in Western Canada who sends billions of dollars there every year to look at a ballot and say, do you want to keep sending all of your goddamn money to fucking Quebec? Oui or no? So it's up to us. We need to. We want them to be happy, right? And so we need to do everything we can to promote Quebec separatism because they grow up and you've got to let them out. Eventually, this deadbeat kid has to move out of the fucking basement.
Community notes?
Sure. Community notes. Fine. Community notes. Here's your community notes.
Community notes. We have election coverage coming up in October. So we're just on the doorstep of October. So October 19th, 28th, and then Tuesday, November 5th. The first, 2nd of November, we're going to be in Red Deer. So we got BC election, Sask election. We got the UCP AGM where we're going to be live. As we told you before, we got the hospitality room. Come see us, hang out with us. And then November 5th is the all-important as well U.S. election. We're going to be live streaming and having a little bit of fun that night. So we're going to be drained. We're going to have lots of stuff going on here coming up. Tomorrow in Kid Scotty is the Shine Christian Academy's What in the World Conference. So if you're interested in that, you can look up more details. Give Dawn a call, 780-305-1082, or email tickets.sca@gmail.com. They got a bunch of speakers coming into Kid Scotty, Alberta. You got Maidstone Oktoberfest, October 5th, Dundurn Day of Destruction, and Figure 8 races October 5th. There you go. Okay. What else, Twos? Anything else?
That's basically it. There was some other Oktoberfest things that I heard about after the fact. And then one of them was actually at the Grey Eagle Casino, so we wouldn't have talked about it anyway.
Yeah, Grey Eagle Casino.
Yep. That's basically her, brother.
126 in the bag, folks. Some technical difficulties from this side. We're going to get to the bottom of that because that's like 2 out of the last 3 weeks where I've had issues, and it seems to happen. I don't know what's going on. Thesis is listening in or something. Either way,
that's totally it. It's like when the mobsters in the 70s used to be like, why are all our phone lines crackling all the time?
it's probably something to do. I mean, I literally did.
If you're listening, you can just tune in and subscribe to YouTube.
But please subscribe.
Help us
to
out.
YouTube.
quit making our audio crackle and subscribe at the same time.
Folks, that'll do it for us this week. Thanks for tuning in. Of course, we'll be back next week, same time, same place.
We got a last minute addition. Melissa's road race tomorrow, 5, 10K, and half marathon.
Where is that, Eileen?
Where is it? Where is it?
Yeah,
we're putting you on the spot.
Where is it? The race, Eileen, for Melissa's road race. But yeah, we're back next week. Please share if you're enjoying the content. Follow, like, subscribe. As Twos points out, we tried getting a guest today, and I didn't realize that the YouTube following was what they were staring at. That's an interesting one to me.
Yeah,
I would say we put it on.
Like I'm just a regular schlub who just yells and swears a lot, but Sean's literally a full-time podcaster.
Yeah, and I've been removed off YouTube multiple times, so I got, when I think of YouTube, I might as well throw it in the same vein as CBC. Like it's like, come on, let's get real here. Either way, that's gonna do it for us today. There's Eileen. She says Banff, so it's in Banff.
That's what I said.
Oh, you did say it. Okay, well, I didn't hear you. 126 in the books, folks. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, thanks for tuning in, especially Paul. Appreciate that, buddy.
Till next week.